What's going on, guys? Welcome to the course. We're going to talk about dividend investing and why it's such a great opportunity for you to build both wealth long-term and passive income for the months to come. Now, this is not just from me. There are many people in the world that do this, and the power of dividend investing is, literally tenfold once you understand it. Now, you do have to build up to it. It's not going to happen overnight, full disclosure. However, once you put more and more into your account, I'm going to start talking about, we're going to break down everything here for you in a second. I'll give you the whole course overview. All you really have to know is as it compounds, as you put more and more money into your dividend portfolio, it's going to be paying you out more passive income every single month. Then it's up to you to decide whether you want to pull that passive income out of your portfolio and potentially live on, or you want to keep it in and just kind of keep re-rolling it to, make more profits. So essentially the first thing that we're going to talk about, I'll pop it up on the screen for you right now. Obviously, I'm talking about right here why dividend investing is important, why it can be a massive tool for you when you're building wealth and passive income. Then we're going to talk about, different stock trading platforms, because it's important to understand, which platform you like best. They're all very similar in my opinion, but just go with one that's more comfortable to you. Some of them are a little bit more advanced and can be overwhelming for beginners, and some of them are more beginner friendly. So pick one and roll with it. They all do very similar things, and they're all very good. We'll break them all down for you here shortly. Then we're going to talk about the power of compound interest and why it's important when you're starting early, or the earlier you start. So if you're 17 right now, obviously you have a leg up on the competition. You're ahead of the game. If you start now, that compound interest will pay you massive dividends, not just literal dividends in stock dividends, but literally dividends for the months and years to come. And you might look up when you're 50 or 60 and be very, very wealthy just because you started investing early. However, if you're 25, if you're 35, if you're 45, this still applies to you. Early is relative, so start now. And it's great that you're watching this course, because that means that you will. The next thing we're going to talk about, I want to give you a little bit of disclaimer. Obviously, I am not an expert in the stock market. I'm just giving you my anecdotal evidence and my anecdotal, basically what works for me. Break it all down for you, and it's going to be very, very helpful. But I do want to talk about that because it's very important that you don't think, literally emulating exactly what I do is going to give you the results that I have gotten. But also furthermore, I want to talk about the biggest mistakes to avoid when you start investing, because this is something, if you can knock out 90% of the mistakes that most people make, you're already ahead of the game. So that's going to be a crucial lecture. We're going to talk about the biggest mistakes to make sure that you avoid. Then we're also going to talk about how dividends can potentially change and what that means for your portfolio. So it's important to really kind of understand the companies that you're investing in going forward, and what that means for the potential dividend that they can pay you out and for how long. We're also going to talk about the importance of balance sheets, because this is very, very important. It's always very important when you're investing in any stocks or any companies. However, when you're dividend investing, it becomes exponentially important, and we're going to get that, into that, and I'll disclose that for you in that lecture. Now we're going to talk about the biggest mistakes. We talked about the biggest mistakes just in general for investing. We're also going to talk about the biggest mistakes to pay attention to that you want to avoid. Same overall premise here. So, if you avoid 90% of the mistakes most people make, when you're dividend investing or you're looking to build a dividend portfolio, you're going to be ahead of the game. You want to avoid these mistakes at all costs. Just be cognizant of them. So if you happen to see something that looks similar, you can go, oh, light bulb. Brian talked about that in the course. So we're going to talk about the biggest mistakes to avoid when you're attempting to build a dividend portfolio, and certain risks that come associated with that versus some benefits, obviously, and just be cognizant of understanding the risks and potential rewards of doing so. Then we're going to get into the top dividend companies, that I think here in 2019, 2019, I apologize, and this is going to be relevant. So if this course ages and this is relevant, in 2020 and in 2021, or literally any year, because typically speaking, you'll see this once you look more into dividend, portfolios and dividend stocks. Typically, the companies that make a point to, try to pay dividend stocks. Now, this is not always the case, but typically the companies that pay higher dividend stocks make a point to do so for that reason, and typically they stay paying high dividend stocks. So obviously there are risks associated with that. I'll talk about that in the lecture prior to that, like I talked about. But typically speaking, if a company pays a good dividend, there's a reason that they pay that good dividend, and they will typically, most of the time, be at least paying a somewhat high dividend in the future. So this is still relevant if this course ages, just keep that in mind. Furthermore, I do want to talk about the highest dividend paying companies, just in general. So I'll give you my analysis of some of the top dividend stock companies, but then we're also going to talk about, the highest ones. And like I said, some risks that are associated with those highest ones, like we touched on previous lectures. And if none of this makes sense, it's totally okay. I just want to outline, what's important and what we're going to go over in this course. So if, maybe you aren't a beginner and you already understand some of these, things in the initial lectures, you can jump ahead to some of the stock recommendations or, other important information that you want to see. But if you're a beginner, go through the entire course because it's really going to help you out. And this stuff is crucial for building wealth, guys. Crucial. So the next thing I want to talk about is, companies that have a great track record, a great track record of paying those dividends, and potentially ones that you might want to look into. I'll just hit you with a bunch of them. Roll through, X company, Y company, Z company, T company, X, etc. And I'll give you examples of those. So if you potentially want to look into those and do a little bit more due diligence, that's a route that you can potentially take. Then I'm going to talk about my personal portfolio and what companies I'm looking at for dividend stocks, and also give you examples of companies that I actually own in my portfolio and the reasons why, and why I like those companies and the dividends that they pay. The next one we're going to talk about the power of a dividend portfolio and really the scalability, and that's where it gets crazy, guys. That's where you can start earning $5,000, 10 grand, 50 grand. That's a bit, high and probably out of the reach of most people. Most people are probably gonna be earning, 1,000 to 10,000 a month on their dividend portfolio once you build it up to that level. But the scalability there is immense, guys. So if you can build a dividend portfolio that's reliable, not only will you build wealth long-term and that will compound for the long term, but you'll be collecting thousands in dividend payments every single month passively. So imagine a place where you could just put your money into dividends and build that portfolio up, and then have the comfort and safety, for lack of a better word. And we're going to get into why the stock market is a safe investment long term, because it is. Given the fact that you don't need to liquidate your money in a short period of time, and you're keeping it in there long term. So the benefit of keeping your money in there long term while it compounds and goes up in value, so you have a lot of money when you're older or you're getting into retirement, while collecting those $1,000 or those $10,000 dividend payments, depending on what's in your portfolio, what stocks and what they pay out. So it's a really, really exciting stuff. I love this, and I'm really excited to teach this course. I hope you can feel my passion. We're also going to talk about, some things to keep in mind when you're pulling out, your dividend payments. So if there's two types of people, realistically, and then anybody can fall somewhere in between there. The first type of person looks at dividend portfolios and building passive income, and they want to collect that passive income out of their portfolio every week. You have to pay taxes on that just like any other income. Then we're also going to talk about, capital gains. That's basically what capital gains taxes are. But then there's the type of person that keeps it in there long term and just keeps re-rolling it into the next, the next month and the next month. So it compounds, and not only do they earn more at the end of that time period whenever they decide to pull it out, but their dividends will also compound because there will be more money in there. So there's two ends of the spectrum. You might fall anywhere in between, but it's important to understand the certain tax limitations of doing certain things in that. And I also want to talk about a disclaimer, because I'm not a tax expert. I'm just, like I said, giving you my anecdotal experience and what's worked for me and what I understand. So always consult a CPA or a tax professional, when you're talking about paying taxes on a certain income. I'm not an expert, but we'll talk about that, in that lecture. And then, obviously, once I've taught you how to actually go about doing all the investing and looking at dividend portfolios and building one up and looking at cash flow and balance sheets of certain companies and what, stocks you might want to look into to build a dividend portfolio. I'll give you my best beginner stocks and so on and so forth. Then it's up to you to go out and start investing in some of these stocks yourself, so you can start collecting that passive income and building your own dividend portfolio. So I hope you're excited. I'm really, really excited to get into this. I've been really into the stock market lately, probably about the last 4 or 5 months, and I've really started to not just learn about it and do it, but I've actually literally been putting my money in and seeing the passive income and the portfolio start building up with some of these dividend stocks, and it's got me really, really excited. not just for me and my financial future, both passively and long-term as it compounds, but for you, so I can teach this and bring this to more people, because this stuff is very, very important, and most people don't learn this in school or from their parents, and it can literally change your life and give you financial freedom. So, with that being said, let's hop into the course.